Welcome to Twin Whistles. I'm your host, Joe Chapin. Today we'll be talking about the Jim Harbaugh suspension that was self-imposed by the University of Michigan. But if you're new to the channel, I want you to subscribe because we're going to have a Michigan football preview. We're going to do a lot of great things for Michigan football and Michigan basketball moving forward. So you want to stay tuned to this channel. We're going to give you a lot of great insight and great opinions and just give you what you want. And if you're a Lions and Red Wings and Tigers and Pistons and fans, you're going to love this place because we are going to do the same for all those teams too. Now, I I was going back and forth about the self-imposed suspension from the University of Michigan. On one hand, I go, okay, if they self-impose a suspension for 3 games, they do it this year. It admits that you did wrong. That's what it does. It admits that you did wrong. But you're hopefully hoping that the NCAA goes, okay, next year it'll only be 3 games because the third game you are gonna play next year is Arkansas State. You're gonna miss the Texas game, which that would suck. But you're hoping that by doing a self-imposed suspension, that you would kind of damper their suspension and kind of maybe they make it 5 games and maybe make it 4 games. So next year against Fresno State, you're out. He's out. That's the hope, and no scholarships taken away. That's the number one hope. So that's why they try to go with the self-imposed suspension. But on the NCAA side, that's where you could get a little tricky because they could see that you self-impose a suspension and they could still tack on 6 games. And the issue with that, and we're not even going into the scholarships that could be potentially taken away. We're not going into what could potentially happen down the line. These are your first 6 games next year. You play Fresno State, which that's a win, but we got to keep in mind that JJ McCarthy could leave because he could be a first round pick this year because I think he's a really good quarterback. Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum, you could be missing a lot of people next year. So that is what is the issue. You play Fresno State, you play Texas. Those are 2 home games. Texas is going to be tough. That's going to be a really tough game. You have Arkansas State, but this is if you did go the full 6 game suspension, this is what would happen. You'd miss Fresno, you miss Texas, you miss Arkansas State, you miss at Illinois, versus Maryland, and versus Michigan State. I know Illinois doesn't strike fear into you, but that's a program that is really turning around. If you see that their draft prospects that they're building out there, Maryland, they could be a tricky team. Michigan State can always be a tricky team. Texas could be really really good next year. That's a tough schedule. So for the betterment of the program, it's better if you just self-impose the suspension because look, you can say all you want, it's kind of a tacky situation. I'll agree with you. It's a tacky situation. It's really not nothing. The issue is that Jim Harbaugh lied. That was the issue because he didn't admit to his things that he did wrong, and that's why the NCAA is going after him. And the NCAA has always had a hard out for, Jim Harbaugh. This is no different. Okay, this is no different. So your hope is that you self-impose a suspension, you get a little bit leniency from the NCAA, and he doesn't miss that Texas game next year. You hope that scholarships aren't taken away. A lot of things are done. You'd rather. I think Michigan would rather pay a fine than take the suspension. Maybe that's on the table. By admitting guilt, it basically says we admit to our wrongdoings, and we're gonna get this done. And hopefully the NCAA agrees with you, and they don't say, nah, 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 nah. It's too late for that. We're gonna go a full 6 games after he's already had the 3 game suspension. That's the tricky part because if he does do the which they are because the University of Michigan announced that he will do the 3 game suspension that was self-imposed. If they do the 3 game self-imposed suspension in next off season, we're talking about a 6 game suspension for Harbaugh. I don't even want to talk about that. That would be absolutely just devastating for the university. And I know you look at the first 3 games this year and you go, my dog can coach against those teams, ECU, UNLV, Bowling Green. My dog can coach against those teams. When you have teams on the schedule next year at Illinois, versus Texas, versus Maryland, versus Michigan State, those are tough games. Period. Those are games that you can trip up in. Even if you want to go as far as Rutgers, that could help too. But this is what's going to happen. They had to do a self-imposed suspension to give themselves a little bit of leniency from the NCAA, and that's exactly what they did. I'm Joe Chat from Between the Whistles Detroit, and I will see you in the next video.